Hello, this is the girl with the controller, and it has been a moment. About 6 months since I published my last public non-Patreon video, besides us getting our little cat. And a lot has been happening in my life, the biggest being we just moved several hours from the city I grew up in up into the mountains, and we actually were able to buy this house. So as you can see behind me, we are still getting settled, especially because this will be the guest room. It was lower on the priority list. And then also making videos has been hard besides everything that's been going on with switching up so much of our life. I packed our game consoles early, and then I wasn't able to get the footage that I needed from them to do my Mario Kart ranking video. And then as soon as I've unpacked them, my laptop died that had my script, and some scripts for some other videos as well. Sorry, I felt that cusp of a burp. And so with that, I've just been everywhere. But I wanted to really come make a video. I just remember too, I'm also my tripod is tilted and breaking, so that's why I'm slightly angled. But yeah, it's just trying to get everything together. But I wanted to come on, make more of an informal video today to talk about something that has been kind of on my mind lately. And that is the topic of gatekeeping in the video game community. And so gatekeeping is something that many of us have experienced. Probably a lot of us, whether we realize it or not, have committed it. And it's a really negative thing that hurts people from wanting to join and be part of this community, to share their own experiences. And if we want people to be welcome to join in, it's something that we should look at and evaluate. And so I just kind of wanted to do a more, like I said, casual video and break that down. So first I want to start with, what is gatekeeping? So I looked up the dictionary definition, and it is the act of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. Which makes sense with a literal gate. In this case, it is less about having access to video games or being able to play a game, and is more limiting access into the community of finding like-minded people. Obviously, gatekeeping is hurtful. Often it portrays a lack, or not a lack, but a level of elitism. It's, you have to achieve and be at our level before you are accepted into the community. It's often works-based. Words I was thinking was works-based. It's legalistic. It's performative. It's things that we often view on certain negative sides of some religions, but we just apply that just as much to things that are not necessarily religious in our lives. We are people that want to achieve and base other people's worth compared to ourselves. It also discourages people from wanting to experiment and join in and share their opinions. And while I wrote some notes down about why people gatekeep, how we, work through this, and what does it reflect, I just had a few examples if you're still kind of confused about what do you mean by gatekeeping. So sometimes it's those little remarks that they're just kind of odd. So one example was when I was going to go get my permit, which was oh man, 12 years ago now. I am getting old. But anyway, I went in and I was wearing a blue Super Mario Brothers 3 t-shirt. And the guy at the DMV was like, "Do you even know who that is on your shirt?" And it's yeah, I know Mario. And even in my head, I'm even if I didn't play video games, who doesn't know Mario? And then he was too, I was well, have you even played that game? It's yeah, I own it. And it was just weird, because it was one of those, it wasn't an active attack or anything, but it was just the way something was questioned was I don't think you belong here. Are you faking? Are you posing? Or do you actually know what you're talking about? And it was just one of those okay, that's kind of weird. I'm also weirdly like by making videos, it's like you're a public figure where yeah, you're putting your thoughts and your opinions out on the internet. People can comment and respond to you, and there's definitely been some people that have been kind of gatekeepy in some of the comments, and it's not like, hey, I have a different opinion than you, or like, hey, here's some constructive criticism. Like, that's totally welcome. That is what YouTube is created for. But sometimes the people that are like, well, clearly you're not playing the game the way it's intended to, and that's why, you're having these issues. Or even there's been a couple comments. My most controversial video is surprisingly my Pokemon one, which there were people that are like, you sound like someone who just wants to play video games or thinks you're a gamer. And it's like, okay. My parents have been playing games since before I was born, so I just kind of grew up in that culture. But sure. Or I also have a couple of friends who actively stream on Twitch, and I actually will include both of their Twitch stream links in the comments, because they're both great friends of mine in real life, and I don't really stream on Twitch, but I'm in their comments sometimes, so hey, maybe we can hang out. But one of the two was playing Hollow Knight, and it was something that was more out of her comfort zone, different type of genre, but she heard good things about it. And starting off, as most things when you're new to something, she died a lot. It is one of the harder Metrovanias, and a lot of people would come into the comments that were not part of her normal viewership that were basically being pretty rude about how bad she was. And then someone even make a comment and it was like, oh, well, now I get why you're bad. You're normally a Pokemon player. And it's like, why is this necessary? Instead of encouraging her or giving her tips or anything, it's just like, wow, you aren't the Hollow Knight player we're expecting ourselves to be after we've been playing it for so long. So clearly you're an awful human being. And it's like, why do we do this? So kind of going into that, after those few examples, why do people gatekeep? I got to scroll down on my notes. And often it starts with insecurities within the person themselves. And to kind of go into some examples to prove that of my own life, I was a gatekeeper. And one example was in 7th grade, my friend got a Game Boy Advance. She wasn't really allowed to play video games growing up, but she got a Game Boy Advance and she got Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. And she played it and she loved it. And after that, she's like, I want to play more Zelda games, got into Twilight Princess and all of that. And well, part of me was excited because I'd grown up with The Legend of Zelda. It was my favorite game and I was used to being like the only one I knew, especially who was a girl who loved Legend of Zelda at the time. I was excited to have another friend who was into it. But because she kind of was identifying herself now as a Zelda fan, and I had spent so much of my life identifying as a Zelda fan, it was like she was stealing and rivaling a little bit of my identity. And I didn't like that, and I was insecure. And so I actually, during homeroom, wrote a 2-page paper for fun about how I was a more dedicated and bigger Zelda fan than her. And that is so cringe. I actually found that paper like a couple years ago when I was going through a stack of stuff and getting rid of things. And I was like, wow, that was terrible. Thankfully, I didn't have the guts to give it to her, because that probably would have definitely hurt her feelings. And basically through it was just like, I refuse to allow you to be considered a big Zelda fan because you have not been through as much as I have. You have not played as many games as I have, which is funny because even at that time, I mostly was more of a console Zelda player, and I'd played Minish Cap. Like, I had not played Link's Awakening or Oracle of Ages or Oracle of Seasons. At that point, I might have played the first 2 on the NES, but I might not have yet. So needless to say, it wasn't like, oh, I've played everything Zelda. It's like, no, I have a few games that meant a lot to me as a child, but it doesn't mean that I could be the only Zelda fan, and it doesn't mean that I can't accept people in, instead be like, oh my gosh, let me show you more. It was like, no, you must perform to my level. And again, it was my own insecurities, my own identity, that I felt attacked by someone who wasn't even attacking me, and in the process was hurting somebody else. Another example was in high school when Call of Duty Online got really popular, and I was more of a Nintendo player. I'm more of a single player adventure kind of person. I'm not that big into online gaming and all of that, but there were girls who were kind of more the traditionally like makeup, pretty, cutesy, were getting the boys' attention that I was hoping for. Meanwhile, I was like I don't wear makeup, I don't dress up, t-shirt, jeans, I'm the gamer girl, I'm not the girly girl. And so a lot of these pretty girls were getting into Call of Duty Online, and they were like, oh my gosh, I love video games, I love playing Call of Duty. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, you're not a real gamer. I am a real gamer, and basically, you are just doing it for the attention of boys and not because you actually like it. And if you're a real gamer, you would play games like I like to play. And again, that's just kind of this not like other girls kind of examples that I'm not proud of. But it was one of those things that, because they were interested in a genre that didn't really interest me, I viewed it as lesser. And because they had something that I wanted and were also getting the attention that I wanted, that I felt I deserved, it became a personal attack. Now, not everybody gatekeeps because of own personal insecurity. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes someone is like, hey, I have worked hard to achieve this, and I do think I'm better than everyone else. Sometimes it's envy, like it was with the girls who liked Call of Duty. It's like, why are you getting this attention when I, work just as hard, for lack of better terms? There's self-protection. There's lack of respect for someone. There's multiple reasons. It doesn't, like I said, doesn't necessarily need to be as such a level of insecurity as mine was. But basically it often boils down to making a personal attack to help themselves feel better. But ultimately it helps no one. So, kind of the, split from that in two ways is kind of, how do we react to gatekeepers? And then also, if we find ourselves gatekeeping, how do we make this community and gaming more welcoming? So kind of first, if you're not a gatekeeper, but you're someone who's received these gatekeeping comments, as hard as it is, because sometimes and I've sometimes responded a couple of times myself where I'm like, I might have gotten a little snarky and I should not have, but ultimately, especially understanding why sometimes people will make these comments, it's okay to let people know, hey, that hurt my feelings. And as lame as that sounds on the internet, sometimes people don't even know that happened. Sometimes that's the most basic level of oh, I didn't realize that. But it's not necessarily going to work all the time. Sometimes you just need to ignore it. It's I am not going to put fuel on this fire. Sometimes it is, so respectfully calling each other out. Sometimes it's basically saying, hey, I'm just going to step away from this. I'm not going to feed into their own level of insecurity and start a fight. Generally, be nice, point people towards, because with some people, if you are nice, if you help them say hey, here's where I was coming from, they will notice. I've also experienced where that has not been the case. And then it's okay, I just need to step away. I don't go to levels of attacking them in reverse, because then we're not getting anywhere with anyone. And I know a lot of this is boiling down to hey, be nice and, encourage others. And if someone is doing it to you, just don't take it to heart. It doesn't mean that you're not a gamer. It doesn't mean that you're not good. Just understand that this is probably someone who's basically being an online bully and is insecure, possibly about themselves, and that is not reflective of the rest of the community. And if you have experienced it, I am very sorry to hear that. And I hope that that doesn't discourage you from trying, even if it's not in the gaming fandom, but somewhere else. Like, don't let that discourage you. And how for like we make the gaming community more welcoming, again, like encourage new people. If someone's struggling and there's someone who's open to being like, because I know sometimes we're like, no, I want to figure it out myself, but like they're interested in like learning, and they're more like, hey, give me a hint, give them tips, give them encouragement. Always, help with aid instead of putting someone down. Don't go to personal attacks. Understand that gaming is a journey. I am not a good gamer in a lot of games. I'm pretty laughably bad, but I've come a long way from where I was as a child when I was hitting that wall in Mario Kart 64 because I couldn't figure out how to turn. And so, especially if someone's new or new to a certain type of genre or new type of game, they're not gonna be as good. Even like my little cat video, and the gameplay footage of Hades in the background, like, yeah, getting butt beat at like the first level. But at the same time, we had just started playing the game. So like we weren't good, and yeah, we were getting our butts beat, but now we beat it a couple times. So like it's a journey. We're much better now than we were then, because well, it's more my husband that's been playing. But then also I was like, I'll take the brunt of it. If people think I'm the bad gamer of it, feel free. But also it's like, by the time I post that video, he's so much better at it now. And like I said, has beat it a couple times. But yeah, people still felt the necessary like, wow, you're really bad at Hades. And it's like, yeah, because we were new. Side tangent. But anyway, understanding gaming is a journey. People are going to get better with time and practice, and people also can have fun different ways. Sometimes people play and approach games differently, and that's not necessarily bad. You've got people who are speedrunners who their whole point is like looking at a game, lovingly understanding every point and how they can break it, so that they can get through it as quickly as possible. I'm not a speedrunner, and so it's something that like we will be playing for completely different purposes. And so there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I want to go that hardcore in speed gaming. It's also not wrong for someone to be like, hey, I'm casual, or hey, I have certain disabilities that I need levels of accessibility that a game normally can't provide. And so some people might be viewing something as making a game easier that might make it more accessible for someone else to be able to participate. Always just remember too, there will always be someone who's better than you. So don't get prideful thinking you're the best. And also, it doesn't invalidate people's opinions if they, aren't playing things the same way as you or don't come from that same experience. It's someone having a different opinion is not necessarily a personal attack on you. And so you can like both thrive in the same space. And I get it sometimes where it's like, we do have these egos that we want to make sure that we don't let them get the best of us. And ultimately, like, we need to have grace for others. And I think that will kind of help this area become a better space. I don't know exactly who was all interested in just listening to my casual ramblings about gatekeeping, but it was something that's just kind of on my heart a lot lately, because it's one of those things that's like, I want this to be a place where people can share their opinions and can try something new and something different. And I want to see places like YouTube start with new people who want to write video game essays and, talk about games that are sometimes forgotten. Some people might explore it from different aspects. Some might be really technical, and some might be more, here's my emotions while playing through this. And everything is someone's perspective that I appreciate hearing. So anyway, kind of done rambling. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you guys have your own perspectives on gatekeeping, or maybe if you just have like a really laughably bad example in your life and you want to share it in the comments, feel free. And This has been the girl with the controller, and I hope you have a lovely day.